Hey guys. So today we're going to be actually switching things up a bit. I'm going to be talking a little bit about some of the theory behind the book that I'm writing. I'm going to be looking at and sharing with you all today some things about self-concept, self-efficacy, and stereotype threat. So these are some of the things that can be seen in my book, Rose Wielder, and I wanted to share with you all today how some of the things that I've been learning during my time at school can be applied and shown in the book that I'm writing. So let's, get into the video. I've got my laptop over here. I'm going to be just kind of scrolling through my different notes that I want to share with you all today. So, that's what I'll be doing looking this way. Yeah, what is self-concept? We'll just go ahead and start by, defining some of the terms. Self-concept is basically this, it's a cognitive function where you think about how you are seeing yourself. One author calls it the way a person defines themselves. It's built by how a person processes the environment in which they find themselves. It's a mixture of somebody's own beliefs and mixing that with how they see themselves in a specific environment. Now, one portion of that can be broken into different portions. We're going to be looking more at some of the pieces of that, including self-esteem and self-efficacy. So, self-esteem, we all know what that is. It's just the way a person views themselves, basically, and how they feel about themselves. But self-efficacy is this whole other concept, and that's more talking about how a person views their ability to sort of enact change in their environment. What in the world does all of this have to do with my book, Rose Wielder? Well, we're here talking about the main character, Arabella. And in her life, in this book, basically she's doing a lot where she's having to grapple with her identity and just understand who she is as a person. So this is a really big main motivating factor in the book. It's a lot about her and understanding herself as a person of color, a person of mixed race, a person with a large amount of political power who's actually going to have even more political power in the near future, hopefully if she's able to get coronated and become a princess and everything. So there's just a lot of things that are going through her mind. And the last one is she's trying to understand what it would mean for her to possess and be able to use magical powers. She's going through a lot of identity questions and self-concept questions right now when we enter her story in the book. Now we're going to talk more about self-concept for an African-American person because this is a very interesting area of research, and it's also something that Arabella, being a mix between black and white, is going to have some experiences of, being a person that is part of a minority community of color. And so we're going to be able to see her experiencing some of the same things that can be found in research. So first, looking at self-esteem, it can really waver depending on how that person views themselves, obviously. But one author, Buckley, they talk about Black girls having a strong sense of what it means to be Black. And if they have that really good sense of themselves, they are going to have a higher self-esteem. So that's something that he found, and that's really awesome. But that also shows why Arabella is having such a hard time, because she doesn't really exactly understand what it means to be of mixed race at the beginning of her story. Secondly, self-efficacy. Remember that view of being able to change your environment. That is built up by different experiences where, for example, you're able to change your environment. So let's say you are able to study and then do well on a test. You're going to have a higher sense of self-efficacy. Craighead talks about being able to master a topic or situation, or seeing people like yourself succeed in a scenario, though that is going to increase your self-efficacy. So there are a lot of people, African-American people, who can have a low self-efficacy. One study by Hughes and Demo showed that they can feel racial discrimination and wondering is that what's keeping me from being able to succeed in one scenario or another? Self-efficacy can be really challenging for a Black person because they can have a harder time believing that they're able to do something or enact change in their environment. A lot of other studies talk about how Black people actually experience a really high level of self-esteem. So it's interesting having a really high self-esteem, but then potentially a lower sense of your ability to change your environment. And scientists are still trying to figure out why that is. Looking at this more, it was shown in a study. There's another study of Black males between the ages of 16 and 18, and it showed that experiencing racial discrimination, it actually, really affected their self-concept. So it's affecting the way they're viewing themselves, and for a lot of them, it was lowering their view of themselves. So having different experiences of racial discrimination can certainly be challenging, and especially during the age of adolescence, that can be really intense. So another author, Block, he talks a lot about this concept of adolescence being this really pivotal period of time when people are really understanding their identities. They're trying to understand, what does it mean to be me? And if you are in a place where that's hard to understand or hard to grapple with or accept, you're going to have a much harder time than, say, another person. Again, that goes like right into our main character, Arabella. She's really going through a lot of identity, not crisis per se, but she's just trying to understand, what does it mean to be a woman? What does it mean to be Black? What does it mean to be white and Black? This mix of races. What does it mean to, be a person who's going to have political power and who may or may not possess magical powers? It's just like a lot of identity questions coming in, and she's going to have to grapple a lot with her self-concept. And one thing that's really encouraging, another study by Adams, it said that Black women have been found to have the highest level of self-esteem of a lot of groups. So that was really interesting, and they were trying to understand more about this, and it was saying, serving a group of Black and white women, they found that even Black women that don't have a very great social support system were still showing higher signs of self-esteem than other white females. So, that's another one of those mysteries that needs to be studied more. But that's really interesting, just seeing that, self-concept and self-efficacy and self-esteem can sometimes be in different places or even in opposites. So now we're just going to go a little bit further into one other thing that I wanted to talk about today, and that's called stereotype threat. So first, of course, as usual, I'll just go ahead and define this. Stereotype threat is, having a fear of confirming a stereotype, and that can lead you to fulfill the stereotype. So, for example, in one study, Black students were being given an exercise to test their intellectual abilities. Now, because there is a, stereotype that maybe, oh no, are Black people smart? Are they smart enough? I don't know. Those Black students actually didn't perform as well on the test as when they were given a test that said, oh, it's just, a warm-up, regular exercise kind of thing. Isn't that crazy? Stereotype threat can really affect us. And that study was by Pennington. And oh, by the way, I'm going to put all of the resources that I was able to look through and read at the bottom, in the description box below. So you can totally check this out on your own if you'd like to. But yeah, so stereotype threat is a really big issue and problem. And especially you can imagine that happening for the Black community, where there's a lot of stereotypes that we have to fight against. Okay. So in one way, you could even think of it as the opposite of self-efficacy. So, it's this concept of not being able to do something. And that's the opposite of self-efficacy, where oh, I by myself can affect my environment. So here's some other examples. Women going into STEM fields could really experience this because, they might be seen as, oh, can women do STEM? Can they do science and math like everybody else, And a study showed that the more that women were conscious of this stereotype, the more that they were having a hard time in their programs, because they felt like, oh my gosh, they were able to notice all of the ways that their engineering programs were not really being that supportive of women. So it's kind of like the more you knew that people were kind of looking at you, potentially judging you, then the more you were really feeling sensitive to that. And that was by Cadaret. That was by Cadaret. So that was really challenging. Another study, it showed that gender can actually change how a person experiences stereotypes. So they were studying boys and girls. They were saying that these girls were having their, and it was black girls, I believe, it was saying that girls had their self-concept was being affected by their view of their gender, whereas boys were having their self-concept being affected by their gender and their race. So it's interesting how boys and girls might have different things that, you know, add to their views of themselves. And that was by Evans, by the way. So yeah, stereotype threat can be really challenging. For Arabella, if you want like a really concrete example, she might have had the fear of being unqualified, you know, not as professional, maybe not as able to do the job. I mean, she was going to be a princess, she's a female, you know, she might have been afraid of, for example, people who were black in her book. They were viewed as, you know, not as powerful, not as smart. They were viewed as like potentially being dangerous. So she had all of these fears going into that she has to grapple with in this book. And there are definitely times where she starts giving into this stereotype threat and being affected by that. Maybe her being more clumsy, you know, maybe not performing as well, or starting to do things that were dangerous just because it's like you're so afraid that you're going to confirm something that you confirm it. It's like the self-fulfilling prophecy. So that's talking about stereotype. But all in all, just to wrap up, today we were able to talk about self-concept, self-efficacy, self-esteem, and lastly, stereotype threat. So those are all the things we covered today, and I hope that you're able to learn a little something about Black people, psychology, and cognition today. And I can't wait for you guys to read my book. It's going to be coming out very soon, and so I'm really excited about that. And I can't wait for you all to read it and see different ways that, you know, looking at these things in the context of a story can hopefully help them make more sense and help you connect with, understand more about the Black community. And yeah, so I'm really excited for you guys to read it, and I hope you're having a really great day. Yeah, as usual, you know, remember to hit like button, subscribe, tell your friends about it, get ready to read this book. And I didn't actually start this video with this, but you know, I'm TR Perry, and this is my booktube. So I hope you guys are having a great day.